welcome to Meno Quirks, the podcast that says menopause isn't a crisis, it's a comedy. We're talking honest conversation, cold truths, and all the unexpected quirks that come with the midlife plot twist. Hosted by Nat and Sal, we're here to swap stories,
share laughs, and say the things no one warned us about. Well, probably should have. This is your safe-ish space to giggle, groan, and maybe learn a thing or two along the way. So grab your fan, your favourite snack, and let's get into the glorious weirdness of the menopause. Together!
This week we're joined in the bell tent in the cottage garden by Lucy Holtom from Living Your Yoga, and she has a special interest in well women, and we're going to be chatting a bit about yoga and life and things like that. And we've got the soundscape of maybe a cat, definitely a tractor,
definitely,
and possibly a few planes
and some chickens,
and me pouring some tea, which I haven't done yet.
Yes,
so
yes.
I'll get on with that in a minute. So Lucy, welcome. It's
Thank
so
you.
lovely.
Thanks for having me.
So we get chatting straight away because we can't help ourselves.
Yes.
So we're going to rewind our conversation a little bit, and I'm going to ask you, how did you get an interest in yoga firstly, and secondly the well woman aspect of yoga?
Okay, so first of all, I started practicing yoga when I was about 15, when we were at school, and I learnt it from a book that was my mum's. It was like a Vogue book from the 1970s, which was very, nothing to do with you. It was all about fashion and glamour.
What were they wearing?
Oh, well, they were like black and white drawings, actually, unfortunately. There were no leotards there, but I'm sure there would have been in another book. So, and I was always quite physical and active and imaginative and creative. So kind of turning my body into shapes following pictures just was quite good fun to spend my time. And then over time, I then started finding out sequences that were in magazines. I worked in a little newsagents when I was at college. And so I used to copy the sequences and copy the breath work and got a bit more interested in it.
Right.
And then I just ended up practicing always on my own all the time until I was about 19. And I had a friend at university that said, there's a yoga class that we could go to. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's yoga? There's yoga in this country, in this town? Because I'd never known anybody that practiced it. And nobody really to talk to about it, I guess. So then I started going to classes, and I used to work as a physical theatre actress. And so my yoga practice was a little bit like self-maintenance, both in breath work, in relaxation, visualisation, as well as the physical practice.
Okay.
So that's how I started yoga, and I've always practiced and used it when I was pregnant, used it for injury, for recovery, because there's so many different types, which I kind of explore all of them. So, that's kind of my life with yoga. And when I stopped working as an actress, I accidentally started teaching yoga. I was asked to teach in someone's kitchen. And then kind of word spread in the town. Yeah. And I started
don't think there's any such thing as accident.
Well, I didn't have an intention just to, to set up
What the universe did.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great. And I've got to work with so many people in the community and actually nationally and internationally. Thanks to the internet and Zoom. So it's just grew by itself without having to do an awful lot. So that's the yoga side of things. So Well Woman yoga came about when I started teaching classes it was in a friend's garden. This friend was very active, very fit, had a very sort of strong dynamic yoga practice, which she enjoyed. Yeah. And then as time went on, she started to really struggle just maintaining her stamina in a 1 hour class. And it got to the point where even coming into positions that she was really familiar with, like, a downward dog, let's say, started to become a real struggle right at the start of the class. And I kind of asked her what was going on. She wasn't sure at the time. She was on her knees. There was a lot of tears. Fortunately, we were in a really supportive community. So the class were very supportive. But none of it, we were quite baffled as to what was happening. We thought maybe there's sort of depression, something's going on in her life, but everything was sort of normal per se.
Yeah.
And then she went to see a doctor who's a very good friend of mine, Dr. Louise Newson, and tried HRT and found that it changed her symptoms immensely. But she was still sort of struggling in other aspects of her life. So I thought there must be something you can do with yoga regarding this, so that you can balance out sort of having prescription, HRT as well as lifestyle changes. So I went and did a training in Well Woman Yoga Therapy with a very good teacher called Uma Dinsmore-Tooley, who does a lot of work with women and in women's health. And it was brilliant. And so what I loved about it, it was very sort of balanced practices, but it took into account women's life cycles from the start of menstruation to after you've gone through that menopausal year and later. And actually, when you sort of stand back and look at all like the sort of the symptoms, or if you like the seasons of our monthly cycle, you can sort of print those, if you like, into our life cycle, if that makes sense. So if you think about, say, our menstrual cycle, if it was an average 4-week cycle, and you had a week for each season, spring, summer, autumn, winter, you'd say maybe from the first day of the bleed, that week could be your winter. So that's naturally a time that we want to kind of feel comfort, we can hunker down, we go into ourselves. And you can create a yoga practice that's deeply nourishing, that's maybe more sort of still and nurturing, and where there's not such dynamic movement, it's more restful. It might be restorative, it might be a yoga nidra. So, and I was like, this is really interesting. So this can be in a premenstrual phase, not a premenstrual phase, sorry, a menstrual phase, but also you can map this for when you're going through perimenopause, when your cycle's all over the place, those days where you feel that, I need to hunker down. There can be a yoga practice that serves that.
I like that.
And then you'd have, for example, then the first week after your bleed would be your spring, and you start to build your energy up and you start to feel a little bit better. So that's when you start to, after you've had your menstrual cycle, you start to sort of build up that energy a little bit more. You start to feel a bit more like you want to get going. And so your energy naturally starts to get a little bit stronger. So then your yoga practice might sort of start to feel like you want to do a bit more movement, you want to get out a little bit more. And it's kind of the same then if you map it into sort of our life cycle. It's that kind of maiden age, if you like. You're starting to a bit of self-discovery, starting to have that growth and bursts of new life. So you can kind of map it there to a certain degree. And then the following week, when we feel like super women, when we're sort of that time of ovulation, if you like, where it's like our summer and we can do anything, remember those times? When we can do anything in our summer. And that's almost like when we're, in our youth and our prime, when we might be starting projects or work or whatever it is, or thinking of having children. It's that sort of time in our life. And in your cycle, that's when you're going to feel most at your peak. So you might start to do a more dynamic practice. You might want to do a dynamic practice. But from a yoga perspective, you can do that. But also you sort of want to think about, save a little bit of that energy. You don't want to kind of burn yourself out completely. So you want to sort of strike a balance there. But you feel like you have the energy to do more. And then obviously the following week, which is often quite a difficult week for many, many women, is the week before the period. So it was like the autumn, where you feel you might suffer with a bit of PMT. And you never know when you're going to feel from one day to the next, what mood you're going to feel. So that's when you can adapt practices where you might have a day of nurturing, you might feel a bit more dynamic, you might feel a bit more reflective. And this autumn, you would map it being like the perimenopause. You never quite know which way it's going to go. And so, and then you come back to winter again. So the beauty of when I did this training and looking at it in this light was like, actually, there's so many different practices. There's so many different ways you can apply yourself. So whatever else is going in your life, you can always take a little bit of time, and a practice can be something that serves you and your needs, depending on where you are.
I love that.
In your cycle or in a time in your life.
It strikes me that it's so important when you are in that regular cycle time of life that you get to understand it, that you get to understand your energy levels and your capabilities within your regular, if you have had one, normal cycle. Because
Absolutely.
It's so beneficial when it all goes haywire. Because it's a very difficult thing to tap into what your hormones are doing, because they don't send you a message to say this is where we are today.
Yeah.
No.
There is no regular cycle
agenda.
No.
necessarily
No.
to make you go, oh yes, this is my winter, this is
Yeah.
my spring.
Yeah, yeah.
But to have previously, when you have been regular, paid attention, how we really need to be aware of our cycles when it's regular, because then when it's not regular, we'll be more in tune with ourselves.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting, I don't know about you, but when I was younger, my cycle was all over the place for most of my life because I didn't really have a sort of regular lifestyle from working as an actress and also kind of, going out partying. There was no sense of regularity, as you know as well.
I do. I definitely know that.
But what I've learned, and it was from my training, we had quite a lot of recommendations of books to read. And there was some fantastic literature. There's not a lot, but there was some fantastic literature out there which has encouraged me to share with my daughter, to learn about her cycle, to give her the information so that she will know how to respond to her energy. Because obviously, although I've just given this sort of seasonal framework, it's not, it doesn't fit exactly, as we all know. We've all got different lengths of cycles. We've all got different experiences of our cycle. Yeah. But what it does do is give us some kind of framework, if you like, for something to use as for insight, for self-awareness. And actually what you were saying, Sally, about it's more about noticing the energy as well as your mood, as well as any physical symptoms, but noticing energetically how you feel. And the most difficult thing is accepting that, because there's not a lot of us, I think, as women that will go, I feel really horrific today. I'm really premenstrual. I've got no energy. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a really restorative yoga practice and really look after myself and nurture myself. Most women I would know would be like, no, I really need to get this workout done. This is what I've said I'm going to do. I have to keep going. I have to fight through it. And actually, if you start to learn to honour how you're feeling and work with how you're feeling, you're probably just going to feel so much better and ride things a lot more smoothly. It's not necessarily, you're not going to feel fabulous, but it's going to be easier.
A thing that's been passed down from generation to generation, because how many, when you say to people, for example, my mother, grandmother, they never sat down.
Yeah, never
and
stopped.
if you got them sitting down, they'd go, I've only just this minute sat down.
Yeah,
and that
absolutely.
resonates with so many women. And these are the lines that we've come from.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so when it becomes, for example, we get into like a perimenopausal stage of life. Yeah. We have all of these symptoms and we can't work out why we feel so. You get knocked sideways. You do. And we don't know what to do if we haven't had an opportunity to look after ourselves or know ourselves.
Yeah.
In that way.
But when you're saying about going to, we've got to go to the gym, you've got to look great, you've got to just knock it out, with weights or whatever. We're not listening to our mental state. We're not finding out why we feel like this. We're just piling more pressure on ourselves. Yeah. And also through social media, it's look like this. Oh, so-and-so is perimenopausal, but look at her. She's got a fantastic bod. Yeah. She goes running every day. Yeah. And so the messages are very confusing and not clear at all. So
and I think I've heard this recently in the weightlifting world, where people will post when they are training and they'll post their bodies when they're training and when they look amazing, but on their down periods they're not posting their bodies when they're not training, which are different bodies. And so then the expectation is out there that these people are like this all the time. They're training all the time and they look like this all the time.
Which is not true.
And
it's just not real.
Don't.
But
it's not real.
What's interesting is this idea, though, when you're sort of saying about what we should look like. We've kind of had this as women for so long, but normally it's when we're younger, because if you remember, people didn't really used to talk so much about perimenopause and menopause. I don't know, when we were younger, we didn't see women sort of over the age of 40 necessarily posing, or in their 50s posing with these great abs, talking about menopause, talking about perimenopause. We didn't see that. So now
we didn't know it existed.
Well, exactly. No. We never we never knew that was going to happen. We never knew any of this was going to happen.
Told us that.
No, nobody told us anything. Completely in the unknown.
It was all Britney Spears being asked where her boobs were or how much weight she put on.
Exactly.
You know, that's what we were.
It was the obsession actually with younger people, and so this is, I think, is quite new, because obviously what is really good is that we're talking more about menopause, perimenopause. Now women that are over the age of 40 and in their 50s and in their 60s and so forth are all still being actually embraced in so many different ways and celebrated in one respect, which is fantastic because it's getting people to talk. And I think, at the end of the day, if it's getting people to talk, then it's a really good thing. There is like more communities, more people feeling better because they realise they're not on their own.
Yes.
But then you do have this other side that you were just saying, where there's this pressure. It's look at me while I'm training. This is what a perimenopausal or menopausal woman looks like. And like you said, it's not. Most people that have come to my classes are between the ages of 40 and 80 something that come to my Well Woman classes. A lot of these women, especially that are parents and they have parents, they're looking after elderly parents.
Yeah.
They're looking after their children. Who might be getting ready for university or exams or whatever, or they might be leaving home.
Yeah.
They're preparing for that or paying for it. They've got full-time jobs. They're feeling pressure. They need to succeed in their job. They are trying to probably either satisfy a partner and still give him attention, or they're going through a divorce, because obviously there's a lot more divorces when women are going through perimenopause and menopause.
Yes.
So they're juggling all of this. And then at the same time, they're not sleeping. They're having hot flushes.
Yeah.
Their bones are hurting or aching every day.
Yeah.
They're putting on weight because because all of their hormones are declining. So obviously
We're
their
keeping our
metabolism,
estrogen right.
keeping the estrogen. So if you think about it, these women, and you think, how that's reality.
Yes, it
and
is.
so when you see these pictures of, like you said about, amazing bodies, that people that worked at the gym, it's like, if you can manage to get that time for yourself, that's absolutely brilliant. A lot of women during this time in their life cannot get that time for themselves. A, because they feel like they can't, because they have to look after everybody and that's how they've been conditioned.
Yeah.
Or B, they haven't got the energy to go and do that. If they have a moment where they can go and have a sleep, I know a lot of women they'll come to my class and they'll go, can we just sleep for this class? I am so tired.
Yeah.
So I'll do a deep relaxation. So,
I do that. I do admit that I do that in somatics, and I do took me a while to go, do you know what? Sometimes I might sleep for this hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's okay, but I can sleep because nobody's going to walk in. The door is locked.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to walk in and want me.
No.
My phone's off.
It's very good that you can do that, actually, because I've had people that come to my class, my Well Woman classes, and actually say, I just need to sleep in this class because if I'm at home, I won't stop because there's too much to do.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they want to have a sort of someone say, yeah, do you know what, it's okay. And I used to go around and still do, or go around and put blankets on them. Put everyone in. And I used to spend so much time planning.
So lovely.
Oh, thank you. I used to spend so much time planning these classes, and everyone in the end used to say, no, my favourite bit, actually I spent hours, all the prep. My favourite bit is when you just come and took me in, because nobody does that. And you're like, do you know what? Just going round and
we're
that
not
connection.
being nurtured by anybody really in daily life.
Well, we're the nurturers.
Because we're the
Yeah,
nurturers.
everything's on our shoulders. Somebody said to me the other day when I told her about something that was happening with me, work, family, etc., and she said, well, what's happened to the little girl that was here? And I wanted to cry. As soon as she said that, I was like, oh my God, no. Because I don't think about it. You don't think about it. You're doing everyone else's nurturing, like you say, just exactly what you say. And I sat back and I thought, what do I want? I actually couldn't answer it. Just couldn't answer it. I don't have time to sit and think about it. But when I did have time, I sat there and thought, I don't know where to start. I literally don't. But it's important.
But that actually, having that question and being asked that can be really overwhelming. And in, for example, in my classes, we always start with a little bit of reflection. People are on their own. I sort of take them through a little meditation, and it's like, how are you feeling? Ask yourself, how are you feeling? How's your body feeling?
Yeah.
What's your energy like today in this moment? And what's happening in the mind or the emotions? And actually getting people to ask themselves that, but without judging themselves on that as well, and just saying it's okay, because this is your starting point of your practice.
Yeah.
And when we move through your practice today, it's going to change, and we're going to reflect at the end. You're going to reflect on your own. I mean, they might not want to. They might just, I think a lot of them probably go through their shopping list and what they have to do next, because that's what we do. But actually planting that seed is creating a space to do that, because otherwise it's very rare that I think we will ask ourselves, unless you have your own practice in place, whether it's any kind of spiritual practice, it's when do we ask ourselves, how do I feel? What do I want? What am I doing?
Being allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Somebody else giving you permission to do that is very powerful, because the overall sort of vibe that we feel every day is that if you say, oh, my bone's really achy today or whatever, then we're going to be a grumpy old crone who's always banging on about how awful we feel. When really all we're wanting is the connection. And when you get the connection of somebody else going, yeah, I'm really hot today, I'm having a really hot fish day. Here we are in our sauna of a tent. Dripping. There's that connection, and then the connection sort of allows you to express that side of you, and that's okay.
Well, you feel like you're not on your own. When I listen, when I either run events quite regularly and classes, and always create, like, you kind of hold a space. You're more of a space holder, and sometimes people will be talking about what they've been doing and how they're feeling, and it's courageous, it's expressive, and then everyone's like, God, I've been like that, or I used to feel like that, I've done this, and it starts that there's a community and there's a sharing, and the people that come to your classes, then it's not like they're best friends necessarily, or they might come on their own, but there's a relationship, and it's a place where they can feel safe to express and actually support each other, and know that they're not the only one that's kind of hanging on a thread on that day, and actually then it navigates the class.
That's brilliant. I think that's why we started the Meno Quirks, to tell people you're not on your own.
It's important.
We're very much connected. We go on our phones and we just look at other things, but we don't look at each other anymore. You walk down the street, people used to smile even if they didn't know you. They go, all right, Now you don't look at each other. People don't respond in a similar way. So maybe people feel on their own if they're having a bad day. Sometimes just someone smiling at you makes such a difference. And they don't. So you kind of think, and so what you're doing is fabulous, because you can go somewhere where you feel safe and you can just let yourself go. If you don't want to speak, you don't speak.
Absolutely.
You just listen. It's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Can you see the community within your classes, even if they're online classes? Can you see that community build?
Absolutely. So I'm not very techie. So for me, and having a kind of theatrical background, everything was all about connection in person. So there was something about and creating a space like that in person has been quite phenomenal. The community is very strong, and it's a growing community, which is beautiful, and it's very supportive, and people have made brilliant connections with each other across classes as well. And because I run retreats and I run events, some people that can't make the classes, they'll come to retreats and come to events, and they know each other. They've made strong bonds. And the beauty then of doing online classes, which I do, I have like an online subscription membership now as well. So I have people from all over the world that come and join the classes that are subscribers, and they all talk. Even at the start of the class, there's a communication. So I write weekly sort of letters to my subscribers about all different women's health from a holistic perspective, and talk quite a lot about nature and maybe ways that we can support ourselves without having to spend lots of money or use very simple methods. And they're all really obvious when you read them, but they seem to bring up quite a lot of discussion. And that's been really poignant in our online classes now, that people start to know each other and respond. And there's a lot of emails and messages that I get then to me. And we have a group WhatsApp that people can message on. So there is a connection.
Isn't it?
It really is. It really is. Yeah. And it's it's supportive. It's not necessarily chatty, because obviously no one wants their phone being... But it is like people will say, I found this, or I might suggest something after doing something in the class, and people have brought things up. I might send a link to something. So, for example, I'll send a link about your podcast, and I'll say, check out this. And people do, they tune in and respond. So it's quite a thriving community. And my online subscribers, it's just for women only. I do teach men as well in my general classes. But this is just for women. And it's well responded.
So when you're talking about people that go to the top and run businesses, they will expect things in a certain way and not look at the way you build towards something in your psychological sense, or your the nurturing you might need, mental health, etc. And then they'll go to see a football team that they admire or adore, and they'll support it for the rest of their life. It runs through their veins, and then they look at it and they don't understand what those players have had to do to get to that place, and all that they are doing very similar things things that we need to be successful.
I mean, so what we were talking about was like the physical training, the rigorous training, and and movement and breath awareness and coordination, and the connection that they have with their team. There's so much. It was the same in sort of theatre training. It's all about connection, and it's very human, if you like. We're not conditioned to kind of sit at a table from the age of 3 or 4, sit and learn, and be so static. We're here to move and breathe, and I think
connect
and connect, and that's why they've got so much self-awareness and are able to play and connect so well in their training and then in their gaming, and the same as in performance.
Absolutely. And we were talking about this in other aspects as well, like understanding of neurodivergency. Lots happened in the last 10 years, a lot of awareness, but we are just at the start.
Yeah, we're just scratching the surface.
And we have to also understand that a lot of the things at the moment which we think are the be-all and end-all, and that is definitely a fact about this thing that we're talking about, have the foresight to know that in 10 years' time, that fact might have been debunked, or that fact might not be quite what we thought it was. So like what we're trying to do here is not search out the facts and that's that.
No.
We're just going on a voyage of discovery with everybody else and putting it right there because it needs to be heard. And yes, it's beginning to be heard. This is brilliant, but let's keep that momentum.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It's an ongoing thing. It's opening it out to the universe and saying, we're here, we're doing this, we're bringing people on, we're talking to them. Let's see how that opens up conversations elsewhere. Because we originally didn't know where it was going to go. We just thought, let's just do it, And you do hear that a lot, don't you, with things that go well. And maybe some things we don't hear about, sadly. But, some things do go well and they say, well, we just thought, you know what, we'll just do it.
Just do it and see what happens.
Exactly. And if you don't, you'll always wonder what could have happened, what if. Exactly.
Because, like with your yoga practices, we're talking to so many other women who have stories to tell. That means, it's not fiction.
Yeah.
Who have their truths to tell about this. Wouldn't it be amazing if every woman knew she wasn't alone?
Yeah, absolutely.
It might save some people's lives, because I think some people do struggle massively with, serious depression around perimenopause.
They definitely do. They definitely do. There's a lot. Well, I mean, you can look up statistics, but there's a lot of connection between perimenopause and menopause and suicide, and as well as during that time in your life where people will leave their jobs, they will leave their marriages. They feel the change happening with them, and there's no control over it. They can't get out of bed, and they think, and often it's presumed that it's depression. But that's a symptom of the perimenopause and menopause. So I think if you're in an environment where you have got support and you're around people that you can communicate with, then that is going to help. But at the same time, as we were talking before we were recording about, not everyone communicates how they feel. We're not we don't live in a society of big
that encourages that.
Like, let's talk about your feelings. Let's talk to each other. Let's go to work and then chat to each other about we don't. And actually, there's no time. Most people don't have time to do that,
and they don't want to be intrusive.
They don't want. And maybe some people actually don't want to sit and self-reflect because it's too much.
It's too much.
They don't want to realise how awful they're feeling, or they don't want to contemplate their symptoms. So actually, the people, for example, that do come to my class are have become quite used to that, and it's carving out time to do that, and learning to accept is massive. Learning to accept, that's how I feel right now. That's where I am in my life. But the most interesting thing I find about this, from a yoga perspective, is yoga supports fantastically transformation. When you're going through changes in your life, and especially women, we go through changes immensely, not just every month, but obviously our life cycles.
Yes.
We change all the time, and a yoga practice really supports that. And what it can help you with, I don't know it does, but it can help you with actually accepting that, so that you're going through a period of change, but it's not going to be fixed. Something else is going to happen. You never stay exactly the same. You might not like it.
But it's there, and you have to embrace it. Yes,
absolutely.
And learn from it.
It's the ebb and flow. It's the ebb and flow of life, and I feel that it's sort of it's magnified when you're going through perimenopause.
Yeah.
Those experiences and the feelings, then it's magnified. And actually, and when you have a practice, I find, and this is why I teach it, it's an anchor for you to keep coming back to check in and go, okay, so what's happening now? How am I feeling? How can I navigate this so I can best support myself? Because we know if we've got a practice or something that we do that works for us. For some people it's running, for some people it might be writing, but whatever practice that is, if you've got something that works for you and it's your anchor, it's like you come back to yourself.
Yeah.
So you know that you're checking in, you're nurturing or nourishing or doing what you need to do. So when you go back out into every day, you can just feel that a little bit better.
Yeah.
And your interactions are going to be that little bit better.
Yeah.
And therefore you're probably going to feel less flawed throughout the day. So it's just...
It is, isn't it? It's not feeling alone, which is, you feel like sometimes it's a cliche, isn't it? Oh, well, tell me how you feel and you're not on your own.
Yeah.
But literally speaking it out loud sometimes is enough, isn't it?
It's completely vulnerable, isn't it?
It really
totally
is. Like, somebody will say to me, have you had a good day? No. And they go, oh, no.
I know, exactly. I love that honesty. Yeah, I'm the same. You do really want to know.
You look at their face and they go, I didn't really want to ask you that,
Yeah. Stop being so polite.
Oh, I know I did that earlier. How was your holiday?
Brilliant.
It's okay
Brilliant.
to say rubbish.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
It is, and unfortunately, because we're so used to people going, everything's wonderful, and I'm having a fantastic
Here's
life.
my Instagram
Do you
holiday.
know what?
Yeah.
I am one of those people that likes to share with my family on Facebook or wherever and say, look, we're doing this. But often you'll see little things. If you know me well, you'll say, you're on a beach, so why are you covered up? I mean, this is a bit worrying. Are you sunburned? Yes. Oh, okay, because I'm very pale. So I spent the day on the beach and regretted it because I looked like one of those Frutella sweets, with the stripes of colour. And it wasn't until I got home I thought, ooh, that looks a bit severe. Oh no, because I'm very pale.
Yeah.
So the next day I had to go out and we got an umbrella. So I sat under this umbrella. It's really sad. And then I got like a scarf and various things. And I was like, I want to get out. And they were like, no, you're not. You look like one of those rashes. Come on, stop it. But that's holiday, isn't it?
We've got to laugh about
Brilliant.
it.
Yeah.
Well, yes,
A lot of
exactly.
time
But
we've
really,
laughed
with
about it.
menopause, you forget. I mean, I do forget things, and I'd forgotten to put my cream on and various other things. And of course, you then forget sometimes when you're driving somewhere. Because I'm the only driver in the family. Because my husband can't drive because he's disabled, so he shakes. It'd be like kangaroo juice, bless him. We laugh about that all the time. It's absolutely fine. But and I drive along, and I suddenly think, where am I going? And of course, you've got a sat nav, but you think
You go blank.
No, you go blank. It's like, which way is left and right? Oh my goodness me!
Yeah.
But I can drive. It's just don't worry, I can drive. Quick, she's on the road. Everybody off the road. But parking, yes, visual awareness has gone completely.
This is something though that when the perimenopause, menopause symptom, you lose confidence.
You really do.
And it's not just about losing it because my body's changing.
Yeah,
It's losing it in things that you do every day that might have been a habit for your whole life, and all of a sudden it's like, what am I doing?
Yes.
Can't put my hair up.
You can't put your hair up. I forgot what we were talking about the minute before we went off that.
Indeed. So this is it.
Yeah, because we're talking about driving.
Yeah. So
And my holiday has just been to Pembrokeshire, which is about a 4.5 hour drive straight if you don't have stops, and 4.5 hours back. And on both journeys, I wasn't particularly tired, but I found it really tough, a really tough drive. So I took a couple of breaks where I just needed to close my eyes, not to fall asleep, just to switch my brain off slightly.
yeah, because you're concentrating so hard.
And at times I was finding I was doing the duck thing of just closing one eye.
Did your
and
eye
switching
twitch?
half of my brain
Do you get
off.
eye twitch?
I
'Cause
do
sometimes I do when I
sometimes, yeah.
strain. I'm like,
And I was like, no, the switching half of my brain off
Okay.
isn't working. I've
No.
really got to stop.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. I could have slept, but it wasn't that I needed to sleep. It was something about stamina.
And you said that would have been no problem before.
I didn't figure that this would be a problem for me.
But it's interesting. It's like I was saying before. We go through it's a transition, and it's it's not necessarily, you're not necessarily going to be like that for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That's what, and it's, so these, we have these sort of symptoms and these things come up for us, and it's like, why has this become difficult? Why has that got so hard? Why can't I? And it's not like it's physical, as in, you know, oh, I've hurt my hand so I can't drive anymore. It's like the actual, like you said, the focus and the concentration.
Some kind of function isn't functioning.
Something isn't working.
No.
And you'll find it might shift over time. And the thing is with perimenopause is that symptoms can kind of come and go. Some of them will be stayers. But symptoms will come and go. But then when you get to know them, then you sort of learn how to manage them. So if when you were sort of saying you stop and you took a break and you're listening to yourself and knowing what works for you and how to
I was
navigate
at the beginning of understanding that and having that kind of, well, I should be able to do this feeling.
Yes.
The
But that's
frustration.
perimenopause, isn't it? You doubt.
But it's the same actually with energy. I remember, so I used to, run around all the time when I was performing, and then I'd be getting my kids from school, then going out in the evening and doing a show or doing rehearsal, and it was constant. And then as soon as I started getting, fortunately, when I was working as a yoga teacher and I was doing more training, I started to think, God, I can't keep running around like this. And so when you were talking about earlier, you can switch off and have a rest for like the hour. So I started to do this thing when I'd finished work, and half an hour before I'd pick my children up from school, I allocated 15 minutes a day where I would lie on the floor and do a yoga nidra, short yoga nidra relaxation.
Right.
And it was like,
sleep at the end of
sometimes I would,
I
but
bet.
it was like I was kind of recharging my batteries, because I knew when I was teaching in the evening, I would be too tired to do everything, from the school pickup onwards. And then go back to work again.
Yeah.
So it was like, so you start to, when you get to know the rhythm of, even though it ebbs and flows, as we know in perimenopause, when you start to go, I know what can help this at the moment, because of course we know that will change. That 15 minutes, that won't be long enough in 6 months' time, or 12 months. It's going to change again. I'm going to need an extra 3 hours in bed, and and then I won't sleep at night. So it'll just become a siesta and a 4 hour. So it's but it constantly changes. But
It does.
And we can get really wound, women can get really wound up, and then it makes them feel angry or anxious, and then everything starts to escalate. And I'm not saying a yoga practice deals with all of that, but what it can help with is if you can carve out that time just to go, okay, what practices can I explore that might work?
Tune in.
And you tune in, or it might be that. Like I said before, some people will go running, some people might go, I know a lot of people that go swimming and find the outdoor swimming really helpful. For some people, it's going to be more of a creative mode of expression. They might find that they get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, because now they start to wake up at that time, and they might go and find that writing and painting is where they get really fired up, and they'll have a sleep in the afternoon.
What's that about?
Yeah.
Because I still am most creative in the evening.
In the evening, yeah.
I just love that. I love the idea that, you look back. A lot of people used to look back, didn't they? And I'd say my mum and I did not get on. I've said this quite a few times, because I was going through my puberty.
Yeah.
I was a punk, which was the worst thing in the world. And my mum was going through her menopause.
Yeah.
And she had no idea what was going on. And the doctor gave her Valium and said, get on with it. And my mum was like,
Just a spot of hysteria.
Yes, silly woman, stop telling us things you don't understand. Well, do you understand them? No, of course I don't, Great, okay. So in a way, I'm so grateful now it's shifted, and I can sit with my... I feel sad I couldn't do it with my mum, but I feel I can put that onto my children and say, right now, I'm putting myself onto you now. Yeah. This is how I feel. And they've been really good. Yeah. They found it hard, but they also love the fact that we talk about it.
You communicated.
Communicated,
and that's
exactly.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
It's interesting, because my mum went on HRT when she was going through her perimenopause and getting into menopause.
Yeah. So how old were you?
So I would have been... Well, I wasn't living there then. I'd gone to university.
Okay.
I'd just left by the time she went on.
Yeah.
So my dad told me all about how my mum was. And
Wow.
but she went on... As soon as she went on HRT, she said, I felt like a different woman. And my mum never took any medication. She'll avoid it, going to the doctors.
Yep.
But she felt so bad. She had gone to the doctors, was given HRT, felt absolutely phenomenal. Now, this would have been probably nearly just under 30 years ago.
Oh,
so
wow.
25, 26 years ago. Ooh.
Okay. Doorbell?
Come in.
Yeah, so this would have been sort of about maybe 26 years ago or something.
Okay.
And she felt fabulous. She felt brilliant. And my dad sort of noticed as well, because they're very close. He supported her. Okay. And then she was taken off it after there was the big news thing about how all HRT causes breast cancer, which was a big research, flawed piece of research that was that we all know about now. Yeah. But as soon as she was taken off it, she became quite poorly, and years later the doctor said it was, for my mum, it was the equivalent to like taking someone off heroin that had been addicted, because she was on, she had felt so good, it had worked so well, and the dose that she was on, and they just stopped it straight away. That she was so frightened.
Oh God, that's
and
awful.
so she just went right into a spiral and really,
So
really
she crash
struggled.
landed back in perimenopause.
Totally. And then it was just a struggle then, because even then we weren't talking about it, were we? You didn't have podcasts about it. It wasn't in the, it was only the negative connotations to do with women having
change.
menopause and the change, and then you would never hear about those women again. It was like they was there is, I don't know, I think there is definitely change. There's a long way to go, but there is definitely recognition now, and women being far more celebrated. People are talking about it far more, and actually talking about things that work for them. And as we all know, what works for one person doesn't work for another, because we're all completely different. I think we inspire each other. I think it's more about knowing that there's places you can go to find out what you can, where you can get support, and what what you might find useful.
It's not for every. I mean, HRT isn't for me, I don't think, but I might change my mind in the future. But at the moment, I don't feel that way. But I don't get very many people saying, you should go on HRT. What's wrong with you? I get a lot of people saying, okay, cool. If that's what do you do then? How do you do it? And I do it all naturally, so I replace things naturally. But I have to be careful, obviously, because there's certain times where I might notice something and think, oh, I'm not quite sure about that. Maybe I need some extra support. The only thing I find is I think sometimes you go to the doctor and they can be a little negative on the natural side of things, unless you get somebody who's a bit more open-minded. You get HRT and that's it, And
yet it used to be the opposite for a long time. That was like, we'll prescribe you that as a last resort rather than actually seeing the benefits of it.
That's right. And I think they're probably in the place where they're told this is what we have and that's it, So it can be really, and then you sort of like lost thinking, well, everybody's talking about HRT, so what do I do? Where is that evidence to say? Because I do believe in evidence-based stuff, obviously. I think it's really important, but there's a lot of scaremongering still out there
with anything.
With everything, exactly.
Especially, I think this is HRT is something that is for women and women only. At the moment, let's say. And it does help a lot of women. Yeah.
Yes.
So
definitely.
I find it's very difficult when you sort of find something that's really helpful for women, but let's put a big scare out about it.
I know, which is crazy.
You're like,
it?
oh my word. I mean, I'm on HRT. Okay. I've been on it for some time. Yeah. And it's helped me. It's helped alleviate so many of my symptoms that I was having. And then at the same time, I mean, I'm a yoga teacher and a yoga therapist. Yeah. And I look after myself well, and I have a practice, and just general health and wellness is my area of interest anyway. So, I believe in a balance. And what I really enjoyed, just to go back and talk a bit more about my training, before I did my Well Woman yoga therapy, I trained in prenatal and postnatal yoga. And quite often in some holistic circles, it might not be seen as very positive when women have cesareans or have medical intervention and support. And what I loved about my training was that the teacher said, she talked about the beauty actually of what it is to have a cesarean, and she talked about how helpful having medical information, intervention, and how many lives it saves. And I thought, this is what I want to hear. I want to hear a balanced perspective where what we can do now scientifically is amazing and life-saving and life-enhancing. And at the same time, it doesn't mean that you just lean on that completely. Then you go, right, what can I do for myself? Yes. Yeah. And I think that this exactly the same applies in perimenopause and menopause health. We decide what works for us. Yeah. Yes. And then we balance it out with what we can do for ourselves. Yes. It's whether we have, we use supplements, or whether we're on HRT, or whether we're
Whatever
working with purely like nutrition, wherever we are. But it's about, okay, so I'm going to lean on these different aspects. Or some people have CBT, you know, and external support.
Right.
But then I think it's so important, and this is where I find a yoga practice is good, so important that you have a tool or an anchor where you go, okay, what am I doing for myself here so I don't feel that I'm wholly dependent on an external factor.
Yeah, that sounds really good, because you do need that space, don't you? Yeah, definitely. And there's so much information out there.
Yeah.
There's too much, really.
It is,
And it's
saturating.
Yeah, it's very confusing.
Yeah.
And if you're not in a good place anyway, because you're not deciphering information well, you're going to go for that scaremongering. You're going to understand
yes,
that.
and
You get drawn to the
also-
negative.
Yeah, definitely.
The thing about being certain in what you want, and because of these hormone fluctuations, sometimes we're not certain in what we would have been certain in.
Yeah.
It's a lot
So
of
for my
confusion.
second caesarean, well, for both of my caesareans, I knew that I wanted to breastfeed my children, and I was going to do it. But I think common knowledge is if you have a caesarean, you can't breastfeed. And that's like what a lot of people think. And I knew that it wasn't true, and I knew that was my absolute, you know, I knew for
what you wanted
sure
to do.
that that's what I wanted to do. So there are those sort of two, I wanted to be in charge of that, even though I was putting all my trust in the person delivering my baby, because I wasn't doing really any of it.
No, of course. No.
But I was so certain that that's what I wanted to do. So when they moved me from the table, they were like, we're going to take your baby off you now. And I said, no, you're not. And they had never, both the midwives, my daughter's midwife, my midwife, had to go and have a discussion about how safe it would be to move us both onto the bed from the trolley, from the operating theatre, together, because they hadn't been asked it before.
Wow.
And I was so determined that she was feeding, why would I unlatch her?
Yeah.
Because this is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Everybody knows this is a good thing. This is the ideal. So what? And they were like, yeah, you're right. Okay, we're fine with that. But they hadn't been asked it before. And I think when you're certain of something, sometimes it is really difficult to put that across to other people who need to help you facilitate it.
Yeah.
And then when you are also have this perimenopausal stuff or menopausal stuff going on as well, you maybe get to the point where you go, well, if other people don't think that I'm quite right about this, maybe I'm not quite right about this.
Yeah, there's a lot of self-doubt, and we start
and then the self-doubt comes in. And then we also talk about imposter syndrome quite a lot, don't we? Where you do something that you are completely confident about in everyday life.
Yeah, definitely.
And then suddenly you're doing it and you go, I can't do this.
Why can I not do this? I've done this so many times before.
Yeah.
It's like you stand up doing a presentation and you've got all your slides, and the slides are old and you know what they are without even looking at them. And you stand there and you look at people's faces. The worst thing I could do as an actress as well, you look at people's faces. Yeah. You play to your audience, don't you?
Absolutely.
And one of them might laugh, so you think, I'll tell a joke at this point then. So you tell a joke and then you think, what am I doing? Hang on a minute. Oh my God. And then you think, and especially if they put a restriction on you, like, you've got 60 seconds to say this.
The pressure. Yeah,
60 seconds, and then you've panicked for 30 of those seconds.
And
you've got 30 left, and there's a clock going, and you're watching that clock. And by God, you better not get past to that. And it is so stupid, because the amount of times you've done this beautifully and perfectly, but all of a sudden it's like, no, you know,
something comes over, or there's the brain fog, or there's the blank.
Yeah,
and you pause and go, what was I saying?
I thought
This is the end of it.
I thought I was asleep. It was a bad dream. And it's like, they're all looking at me.
Might well be a bad dream.
That's brilliant.
But it is, it is a scary thing, isn't it, I guess? And I think of when I was a dresser and I used to work at a theatre, and I was there, like, one of my first jobs. And I got these actresses coming off, very famous actresses, and you have to do quick change, very quick change, and they'd say, what's my line? And I'd be like, and I'd have to go and remember that, because they would struggle with their lines. And yet they were amazing actresses. And I think possibly the menopause, which I didn't know at the time would be a thing.
Of course not.
But, it makes me wonder with all of that, you think of politicians, you think of people maybe doing operations that all of a sudden may go, Oh my,
Yeah.
all of those positions, they must be absolutely worried to death that they might
so
make a mistake.
stressed. Yeah.
Because that's the human vulnerable side of us, isn't it? So yes, I can see
And
why.
also it's really real because
Yes.
look at look at who's made a, who's been vocal about being sacked, BBC Wise again. Because of their age.
Yes, indeed.
Because they're a certain age and they're a woman.
Yes.
Whereas, people like Bruce Forsyth
went on for
went on
millions
till
of
his
years.
last breath.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Anyway,
It's
we're
incredible
going
it's still like that, isn't it, though?
It really,
We think
really
we've moved
is.
on, but it hasn't
got a
moved
long
on.
way to
Yeah,
go.
so long. Yeah.
There's one lady that's died today. She was in her 90s, Biddy Baxter, and she ran the children's. Yeah, she was famous for BBC
she
Children's.
was.
She died. Yeah, she's 90 something,
Wow.
7, I think.
Wow.
I know, and I just sat back and thought, oh, gosh, that's an end of an era.
She was in
It really is.
Peter.
Yeah, but she was a staunch. Apparently, she was very, very, very tough. And yes, of course she was. It was those days.
Yeah.
But she was, what they said was, she was a woman in a very much a man's world. Even then, it was worse than it
Yes,
is now.
yes.
So
She
for
had
her,
to-
it must have been. Yeah.
It was like
Yeah.
Thatcher. She
Yeah.
had to be
Yeah.
Oh,
how
yeah.
she was to have that job.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
She's really tough.
She wouldn't have been able to do
No,
that
no,
job
absolutely
without
not.
behaving like she was a man in a skirt,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yes, totally.
Yeah, which makes you understand a little bit more about them, the background too.
Yeah,
They might not have liked
yeah.
her politics, but understood the
Makes you
woman
more
going
compassionate, really, to
Yeah,
the situation.
definitely.
Because anybody that's going
Definitely.
through that stage and, going through menopause and having to hold so
you
much responsibility.
Hold the country together.
Oh, yeah. Any kind of
Yeah.
responsibility in
How
whatever
did she do
shape.
it?
Yeah.
Do you ever think we'll get to a time then, thinking about how your work kind of helps people working and also obviously people with children, but working in the workplace at the moment, they can come and they can just relax and look at themselves and understand themselves and work with themselves a bit more. Do you think there's ever going to be a time when the businesses might take that on board and use it as a resource?
I mean, so originally I actually did... when I started teaching Well Woman Yoga, I was the yoga teacher at Louise Newson's Menopause Centre in Stratford.
Okay. Yeah.
So I used to teach yoga for all the staff in the lunch break.
Oh, fantastic.
So it does work.
Yeah.
And then consequently, when it was during COVID, I was the staff teacher then for all the GPs everywhere.
wow,
So that was
brilliant.
great. Yeah, and the
Brilliant.
doctors, and I still have, and all the nurses and the administratives, because there's so many, and I still have a lot of connection, and I still teach quite a lot of them. So it does, people, the people that run the businesses have to invest in that because they know, but have it on the same level, regardless whether they're going through perimenopause, menopause, or if it's for men and women of any age, to do something like that for your staff, to let them have that opportunity, which a lot of places do now. You do, some businesses are doing it.
Yeah.
They know that they're going to get better results with their staff.
Yeah.
It's a bit like it's such an obvious.
Yeah.
Such an
It
obvious
really is,
thing to
though.
do.
It is really.
And we know, if you know yourself and know how you're feeling and what's happening with you that day, you know that your day is going to be far more effective
Yeah.
when you can navigate your day around your energy levels,
Yes.
what you're capable of, and you know that you'll go, I can, if you're somebody that's target driven, I can reach those targets today because that's how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow it might be, right, I'm going to use my energy in this aspect because this is how I'm feeling today.
Yeah.
But there's not,
Yes.
and more people do that. More people are
that's good.
meditating.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've got a very good friend who's going through menopause, and she used to be incredibly athletic. She's incredibly academic. She's a real force. But perimenopause has knocked her sideways. And although she does all the meditation, she still goes out running and cycling. She's on HRT. She is still really struggling. So I think it's just... You can only do what you can do, but I think knowing that it's a transitional period.
Yes.
And it's
That's
redefining
going.
who you are, think you are.
Exactly. And actually, there's something really interesting about that because when we go through any transformative phase, so for those of us that have had children, you know that when you've had a baby, your life is never going to go back.
Yeah.
And if you fight to try, and this is in my experience when I've worked with people that have tried to go back to what their life was like before, they are the ones that, in my experience, have struggled the most in moving forward as a parent, because it's so difficult, because you lose such a, you know, in a holistic world, you'd say, you know, you're a maiden and now you're a mother.
Yes.
That maiden day, those maiden days are gone. And you're like, that, what? They're never coming back, because now all that's going to fill your head is this being that you are going to keep alive and look after and worry about for the rest of your life. Yeah. Yes. So, and I think it's from my work that I've done and from people I've worked with, it's exactly the same when we go through perimenopause, menopause phase, state transitions in our life. We're not going to be what we were before then.
Yeah.
Yes.
We are going to have, obviously there's our nature, but so much of ourself is going to change. And actually the thing that I loved most is this idea that you can really embrace, if you can find a way to kind of embrace change and move, it's going to be a little bit kinder rather than resisting it.
And you're going to accept it more.
And change, and change is hard. Often it is painful. It's never easy.
Yes.
And I think it's finding whatever your anchor or your tool is in life, whatever you're drawn to. Like we were talking about painting, and I've started painting again for the first time in nearly 20 years. And it's like, God, it's now it feels fantastic. There's definitely a different experience with it. Yeah. And I'm not judging like, oh, it should look like this. It doesn't matter.
Who cares?
And actually,
who cares what you think?
Exactly. And actually that's coming from a place of life and experience and wisdom. It's like, well, what matters now?
And our role as women to create.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if we're not creating something, I think that we do feel deep down that there's something that's lacking.
Absolutely.
Of our life, of our everyday life.
Absolutely.
Is that we're not creating something.
Totally.
And that's such a broad spectrum. We're not just talking about making a cake.
No, not at all.
Creating is a whole other podcast, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd like to listen to that one, Sal.
The importance of creating.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Creating the whole gamut of everything that the human experience is.
And actually when we feel that when we're not doing that, and like you said, especially as women, and I think especially there's something quite prolific happens around that perimenopause and menopause time, where that change and after that change occurs, if we can have a space for that expression and that change in expression, I believe, and from my research and work with people, there is so much more abundance in life in that happens in that stage of life. Something really changes. And I think, you can look at women writers and artists that later in life and what they produce and what they create, and you're like, God, this is genius. And actually the beauty also of, after you've gone through all of these symptoms and all this change and transformation, you get to a point. It doesn't mean that, all your symptoms stop. Let's say, a lot of women still don't sleep, or they still have hot flushes. There's lots of different things. But there's almost like you get to a point where you've got all this knowledge and experience and wisdom from your past, and you've become something different. And even how all the symptoms that you might have had if you had like achy joints or any discomfort, some of those might have fallen by the wayside, possibly. And even your movement and practices and whatever you choose to do, that becomes different as well.
Yeah.
So it's a whole,
it's
a whole shift.
Don't you?
Yeah,
I guess you just metamorphise.
Exactly.
Metamorphosize. You know what I mean?
I like that.
There are people that, the kids are grown up, off they go.
Yeah.
I'm starting a business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you've got that information. You've learnt so much.
You've got so much to offer. You've got so much more to offer.
Yeah.
But the transition is scary. I guess it's like being asked to get rid of your entire wardrobe and choose a new style.
And you have no idea what that's going to look like or be. You don't know what works. You don't know if you like it.
And that's like being asked to. That encompasses so much of your personality. So why would you do that?
And some people are slowing down. You're not. You're speeding up. So everybody's going, excuse me, you're going to pensionable age. Why aren't you stopping? Well, actually, I don't want to.
I know. So I had this. I've just bought my my first house, and when I applied for the mortgage, they were like, "Oh, when do you think you're going to retire?" And I was like, "I'm never going to retire because I'll keep teaching, and then I'm going to be writing, and I'll go back to painting. Who knows if I go back into theatre? That'll be fabulous.
Yeah.
You know, if I can remember my lines. You know, although I have a good prompt at the side, but you know, you just, and so it's almost like, you know, I even, you know, it's quite interesting to be asked that.
Isn't
you know,
it? Yes.
when are you going to retire? Because. And it's just such a different...
Did they take that on the mortgage application for an answer?
I didn't give all the information of all the things I still want to do in my life. They did, yeah. I think I was the one. I was the one getting a bit excited about all the things I still want to do. I think they kind of looked at me with this face of, I'm just going to say you're not retiring now. I said, yes, just say that. Just say that. I have no intention.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
No. It's really important, isn't it? It's really, really important.
Totally.
But I love that. I love the fact that you can suddenly, because I used to think, my brother retired at 55, and I thought, I'll do that. And then I got to 55 and I thought, no,
still things you want to do.
Still lots of things I want to do.
Yeah.
And I want to do a job that I enjoy.
Yes.
Exactly.
That is the key,
absolutely.
isn't it?
Yeah. Why would you want to wait for it to end?
Not a job,
Enjoy.
Yeah,
really.
exactly.
Yeah, keeps your brain
Doesn't
going.
feel like work then, does it?
Exactly.
No.
Yes, that's true. And yes, you might feel like you can't do late nights so much and all of that, but you can do so much more because you understand. You meet more people. You understand things more. You can kind of tell yourself.
Yeah.
You adapt. Yes, exactly. And so all this change could be a really good thing. Yeah, definitely. And that makes me feel excited. You know, the fact that we started a podcast after COVID, of course, but to do with a subject that a lot of people went, what do you want to talk about menopause for? Everybody talks about menopause.
But not everybody does talk about menopause.
No,
there's the point.
Yeah,
isn't it?
exactly. Not the proper stuff. So
sorry, I just ummed, and then you.
Did you and ah then?
I missed that.
Together.
Sorry.
We're synchronising.
Should we have a
each
bit of
other.
air from?
Yeah, we're all hot women
Yeah,
here
we are
now.
hot women.
What is it, 31 degrees, 33 degrees?
It was 33 a minute ago.
Yeah, still 33.
Yeah, okay. So, we were just talking about our biscuit tins and what we have in our biscuit tin. And we would like to know what you have in your biscuit tin.
Well, unfortunately, I've got no idea at the moment because I've just moved house. Everything's in chaos. And when you were saying biscuit tin, I'm trying to even visualise where it could be. I would imagine it could be with some boxes or in the garage or under the stairs, and it's probably got like the bits in that you think you might need one day, or like, you know, like the drawer that you put everything in just in case.
Yeah.
I've got quite a lot of those.
Okay.
Yep.
And I imagine that's actually what's in the biscuit
That's quite
tin.
practical, actually, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
well,
quite good that
possibly.
you could just...
Kind of depends what's in there.
That's true.
You know, you never quite know. It's like several of the drawers in the house. It's probably the equivalent to the biscuit tin. You could think, is there anything in there?
Yes.
And our children will inherit that.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
will,
Someone
definitely
can
they
sort
will.
that out. Or sometimes my mum might come over and she might find something in and sort things out. And you're like, oh, that's something that's
really
useful.
sweet. Yes.
So,
So to take a photo, we'll put it on our...
Yeah, when I find it, I definitely
socials.
will.
Definitely do. Yeah, that would be good.
I am thinking under the stairs. For some reason, there's loads of stuff under the stairs, so I think it would probably be under the stairs.
Yeah.
I'll have a look when I get home.
That sounds good. That'll be on your mind now.
Yeah, it
You're
will
going,
be.
Let's find my
I can
biscuit
find
tin.
chaos in the chaos. Yeah, definitely.
I like that, though, the idea that you don't know. It's like Pandora's box.
A little bit.
Like, whoa, okay.
Tends to be like a lot of the cupboards in my house at the moment, especially. So,
Chaos in the
like it.
chaos.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Beautiful.
where, if anyone wanted to do yoga, because you said you do it online as well. Oh, damn it. Damn it.
Don't swear in front of me.
So, coming to the end of our lovely podcast, which has been fantastic, very hot. We've had lovely breaks where we've been salsaing around a little bit to try and get the air. Moving. Woo.
Little dancers.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's good to move. So we just wanted to know if anybody listening to this thought, I'd like to try some yoga. You were mentioning online classes as
Yes.
well. Where will they find you?
So they could either look at my Instagram account, which is XX Living Your Yoga XX, and they can contact me there, or drop me an email on info@livingyouryoga.co.uk, or have a browse at my website, which is www.livingyouryoga.co.uk. livingyouryoga.co.uk. And I've got like a page of blogs, and it's all the information about all the different things in the community there if they want to have a read.
Oh, that sounds
It's a lovely
fantastic.
website.
Yeah.
It's nice to navigate.
Thank you.
Good.
Here it comes.
Oh, wow. Just in time.
Perfect.
Thank you so much,
much.
Lucy.
Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you
It's
for
been great
spending the time
fun.
with us.
It's been brilliant.
In our sauna of a tent. Right, that's the plane taking our sanity again.
Just a reminder, we're not doctors, and the information shared on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Everyone's experience with menopause is different. So please speak with a qualified healthcare provider before making any medical decisions or changes to your health routine. You've been listening to the Meno Quirks podcast, brought to you by Small Talk Podcast.